On today's show, we will be exploring insights from Rehab, a digital innovation agency, on real-world applications and limitations of AI in the design process. I'm Daniel.
I'm Mateus.
And this is the Human AI Experience. We'll be right back. The most visible face of AI at the moment tends to be generative tools like chatbots and AI image generators. But the team at digital innovation agency Rehab doesn't see this as particularly useful for brands today in their current form. They believe AI can play a role in the ideation and audience validation phase in the beginning of the creative process. So Rehab uses AI for hours of research and strategic work, shaping campaigns rather than creating final assets. So one of the things that they realized is that if they ask ChatGPT for an idea for a creative campaign, whatever comes up probably has been done 1,000 times before, which is the reason that they don't believe this is ready for this specific use case. So they're ruling out, and then they're using more on the data side of things, on the research phase. They're using AI in the beginning of the process, before the creative process happens. So the way they are doing is that they're using a lot of data. So they're going and finding reports. Some of their clients have reports that they buy for trends or identifying user behaviors, personas, and so on.
Yeah.
So they're using this information prior to the creative process. So what they're doing is that they are training their own private GPT or private chatbot with all this data, all these clients' reports, and then they're creating small versions that are personalized for each brand, which is quite interesting because if you have, for example, they worked with, at the agency, some of their clients are Lego, Google, Nike, so pretty big brands. I don't know if all of them are using, of course, this technology because this is something new. They have been around for some years already. Their idea is to have personal, let's say, Lego AI model that is trained with all the Lego information, Lego reports, like customer reports, market reports. And then all of a sudden you have a chatbot that knows everything about that. And they just train it with also creative parameters. So the designers then can go and ask that. So let's say you're creating a campaign for Lego. Then you go to this ChatGPT private model that this agency created. And then you're going to ask some questions. Okay, what are the trends for the next 5 years based on this report? And then it will give you that information. And when you get that information, then you know more or less which way to go with your creative process, right?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's reports. Sometimes they're super big and they have a lot of information, and most of the people don't read it. Even if you work in the same market, it's hard for you to take this information from every different source and read it and see what's going to be the trend for the next years. But definitely this arrives for us in different ways. So we perceive that in the campaigns itself. But then it takes a lot of more effort if you are just perceiving that while it's happening instead of like reading all these papers before, So it makes a lot of sense to strategically to read these papers before, and make the machine do the dirty job for you.
So these models are pretty good at dissecting large chunks of data and extracting valuable information and summarizing that for you, right? So it does make a lot of sense that they are using in that way, especially because they are innovative agencies, so they want to deliver, to bring, they need to be on top of the latest trends to be able to deliver some innovation to their clients.
Is it like a normal marketing agency, or is it focus in innovation or focus in innovation in products?
To my knowledge, the difference between a regular advertising agency is that they are focusing on identifying those trends and acting on them, so they can create something new or new initiatives or orient new business or new or clients or orient clients towards a new segment of business or to follow up some trends. Just to give you an example, there's a lot of people discussing that the latest trends of use of AI is going to be in healthcare, and there's a lot of reports reporting that. So in this case, if this agency has a healthcare brand, they might benefit from using AI in their tools moving forward, because that's the trend, right? Of course, there's a lot more than that, but just try to simplify a little bit the concept of an innovation agency.
Oh, perfect. So thank you for summarizing it.
Yeah, and one of the things that they mentioned in the article, right, is that a lot of these companies, they regular buy those massive reports, right? Like few reports, like industry reports, and those reports usually have 100, 200 pages that their research team or their R&D team are expected to read. But in reality, nobody has the time to read and summarize that effectively, right? So having this test done by an AI that can effectively do that, it's a huge time saver. So I can see where the value is in using these tools for this particular case. One other thing that they mention is that they're designing their own bespoke models. So small private models trained with a mix of public data, and then they mention sometimes train on social media to identify which potential creators or how the brand is performing or their competitors are performing. And then they're inputting all this data into their private GPTs that they're offering their brands. And then that is becoming like a selling point for this agency as a differentiator from other competitors that are not using this tool. So they can offer really, really good insights to their clients using these tools, tailored to their brands, to their creative visuals and their tone of voice and so on. So it's quite interesting.
I was thinking this is super interesting how they are innovating. Of course, their innovation should do that with their business too. What I see in the market is that big companies, they are really slow to move, especially towards innovation and innovative tools and all the stuff. So I believe this kind of agency, they can help the client to move towards the direction of innovation, or show them the paths to apply new tools and new trends in the market. So that's really interesting. Using their own GPT to digest all this information is super useful.
Exactly. I know you know a lot about building your own GPT or training your own using open models, right? Can you just explain a little bit what is the process of creating your own GPT, for example?
Yeah.
What would you do?
Today, software, you can download a version of it, call it open for all. So you can go just to GitHub and search it for GPT for all. And then you downloaded that, you can start feeding your own model, so you can create LoRa. I don't know if LoRa is the same as the right name for this kind of a GPT model, but you can definitely feed it with your own way, so putting the right files and the right database that you wanna copy or simulate in your new documents. I haven't tested as much as I could, so I just saw how the process of doing it, and I really wanna try. Actually, that's my next step, to download it and try what is the capability of this tool, especially being in an open source, which is for me is exciting, to have touch with these new tools and open source tools.
Do you know if you can get the latest model of ChatGPT as an open source, or because I heard OpenAI is moving away from being an open source company, and they just became very greedy. And I mean, OpenAI has been surrounded lately of a lot of controversy, but we're not going to get into that. But do you know which versions of ChatGPT you can get from this that is available to use as a open source model?
So from my experience, that I have searched in the website, and they are not clear which version it is, but I believe it's between 3 and 4, so maybe 3.5. And I think you can access the internet on it, so you don't need to be restricted to your files in your computer. So I think that's a version that is a bit powerful than 3.0, but not as powerful as 4 or the 5 that is coming, ChatGPT 5 that is coming.
Yeah, nice. It's just to understand a bit better how those training models work. And just wanted to highlight one more thing in regards to the whole Rehab case. Weird name for an innovation agency, but
yeah,
hard to find on Google.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's not what I wanted to mention. So in their view, they, apart from the fact that, AI recycles a lot of campaigns, so they don't use it as a generative tool, in their values, in the agency's values, they are seen as a tool to enhance creativity, not replace it. So they're very clear on that. So they want to help designers and creatives to increase their productivity, because the market is demanding a lot more in less time with short deadlines. So they need to move faster, but most of the time clients don't have budget to pay for more people, so they have to kind of like be very smart on how they use their resources. If AI can suggest trends and ideas, the whole creativity, the whole creative task, it's still done by humans, right? So they give an example that a copywriter or an art director can have a conversation with the AI to explore trends and find ideas for campaigns. So
yeah,
they're basically co-creating a bit, but mostly extracting the information that you would have to manually do and use hours online trying to find that same information that their models can deliver.
What I find interesting is, like, usually when we do brainstorming, we need like at least 2 people or more, like you need a lot of people talking about the same topic, and then suddenly, because you were discussing, the ideas come out from your head. So if you were alone doing a brainstorm, let's say, you lose a lot. And if you're using a tool as this one, that you recreate in a robot or with this bot, maybe you can have the same, or probably something similar than exchanging and talking to someone else, And if it's reading a lot of trends, so it might give you some ideas that you're not expecting, going towards another direction that is going to be a trend in the future. So it's a really powerful tool for brainstorming, I believe, and to create new ideas. So it's really interesting how they're using it and how they're thinking about the future using bots and LLMs.
Yeah, and I do some mentoring of new designers, right? A lot of people book me in this platform. So I do some mentoring in this platform called ADP List. I joined 2 years ago, and they grew a lot since then. It got more professional, the tools, you can schedule things. And I mentor a lot of new designers, like designers that are working on, starting their careers and so on. And a lot of these designers are the only design resource that the startup or the small companies have, right? And one of the problems of being the only designer is that you don't have anybody to discuss or spar or discuss your ideas, right? At least nobody that can understand design deeply, right? So I was just wondering here that you could actually, it will never replace a person, right? It's not like you're sparring with other designers that has a lot of experience in their back, but it helps at least to send some ideas and get something back, right? So you could actually use AI for some of those things.
I was reflecting about that, and then I think you got a good point. Like, if you're a solo entrepreneur, for example, that's another example, like in the same range, I think. If you're an entrepreneur that it's like solo and you don't have anyone to discuss ideas, maybe these bots can help you too. So not only in design, but maybe in different ways, like, in entrepreneurship, or even if you have a small business and you are kind of stuck, or if you need ideas to write a post on LinkedIn, I don't know, like simple things can help you if you have these tools alongside with you. That's really interesting. I can see many usages of it. Like, and are they gonna sell this tool, or is it something that's more internal use? This LLM.
Good question. I'm pretty sure they're charging their customers more for that, because that's a competitive advantage that they have, because they're training with a lot of personalized data. So they're creating models, individual private models for each brand. So I'm pretty sure that is an additional fee that you have to get, that you have to pay as a client to have access to, which totally fair. And most clients wouldn't do that with the agency experience on what creative parameters to insert in there. Even if they replicate that in-house, it's not going to be the same. So it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I know that it goes a little bit in the other direction, because usually what they say is that because of AI it's gonna cost less, because less people working. But I do understand, if you're creating your own AI that is full of information, that is full of things that their client needs, you need to charge more. You need to understand that you are fulfilling a gap in the companies. So you are enhancing their business. You are helping them to be more and to do more. So it makes a lot more sense to charge them more.
Yeah, exactly. If it brings value, it has a cost, of course, right? So it's proportional to the value you're creating. So it's just interesting to compare this model with the one that we saw from Klarna, that is also in the early stages of the creative process. But in the case of Klarna, they are doing a lot of the conceptualizing using AI and mostly generative tools. But Rehab is doing it in a completely different way. Rehab is in early stages, like before even the concept with the trends and the data. So it's just interesting to see where AI is being inserted in different moments of a process or a business workflow.
When you add different elements, for example, in sustainability, as soon as you apply sustainability, for example, in the early stages, it was more effective in the whole life cycle of a building, for example. So what I meant, like if you think about one specific product to use in the early stages, and you kept this sustainable material until to the end of the project, is better than if you do it, like for example, in the middle of the project and change the material that you were using to another one. I don't know if I'm clear about this process, but I think it's the same with the AI. As you're using in different phases, the effect might be way bigger and better, in the whole process. So in the early stages, as they're using, it brings so much value. It's like, you're putting the knowledge of a lot of different companies, a lot of different people. They're not even connected to the company, but it's bringing so much value. Like I can see so many potential in that.
Oh, yeah. And this also helps them to quickly iterate with the data, right? And if there's a new report, or if there's new information, that you can also train the models with that and then get up-to-date information as well. So let's say the social media algorithm change, or new creators are behaving differently, or there's like a trend in how you create content online, and you can always quickly get that in and benefit or leverage that. While today you have to really keep up to see if we can, or like monitor that on a regular basis to be able to follow up, to be able to be on top of things.
How is the process right now? Like the process in a normal agents, how do you envision the trends for the next years? How do you work that internally?
Usually agencies have research teams or Sometimes they hire a consultant that is specialized in trends to brief everybody, make a presentation. Clients come with their reports as well, so it's very mixed. So it makes sense how AI is actually disrupting this as well.
But do you think it's effective? For example, if you hire a consulting and then they will give you trends, do you think it works? Or do what they see is kind of what people are seeing, and then you just use their reports to justify your decisions?
I think when you have an external coming up with trends, there's always something missing, right? There's some information that gets lost, or they don't know the specifics of the client. And that also, it's the same for agencies. Agencies are also external. So by being on both sides, I've worked with agencies, I've worked inside clients. When you work inside a client, you know a lot more of the business. You have a lot more information. So it does, ideally, if companies adopt this internally, even agencies as an external can benefit from that. Of course, now it's the first time this is happening, so people are adopting in different ways. They're experimenting. There's a lot of experimentation. So, but I think it's most effective when you have all the internal information, or you know the client really well. Of course, there are agencies that work with the same client for 20 years.
Yeah.
Those I would assume there are almost like internal resources, but at the same time, when you have externals, there's always something that it's missing. Of course, in case of trends, maybe it's less. I think it's more. I would see this being way more effective if you have a creative team inside of the company and you have these tools inside. But that's my personal.
Yeah, I think internal marketing works better than hiring someone else to do it, because in a way or another you're living the company's missions and values. So if you're a good employee, you kind of get that inside of you. If you're working with the same values and looking towards the same direction as the company, you know what is the core business of the company. As times an agency coming from outside, they need to dig a little bit, to get that. So I believe it's more work, and as you mentioned, that the companies that they work, the agencies that they work for 20 years, the same company. So they already did the dirty work of digging and understanding the company. Then can you summarize a little bit what we talked today about Rehab and how they're using AI in their business?
Sure. So Rehab is using AI in the early stages of the creative process by adopting personalized LLMs or private chat GPTs. They are trained with their customers' brands parameters and business reports from the industry or social media, and it's a mix of public data and private data. So a lot of these companies that buy reports, so they're basically feeding these models with that information, and then they're selling that differentiator as their business model to clients. So like we discussed, probably they're charging more for that, but they're delivering a tremendous amount of value to the companies to their clients. So instead of using generative tools, they're basically using chatbots that are trained with large chunks of data relevant to their clients, and then the creatives can then go and ask that model for the information that they need, and then it will help in the creative process by getting some insights into new future trends or creative campaign ideas, for example. So they're committed into leverage the power of AI for data optimization to feed the creative process in a more optimal way. That was it for today. If you're interested in how AI is evolving and how you can introduce it in your life or in your work, subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast service and follow us for more. Let's explore AI together. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to us at hello@humanAIXP.com or connect with us on Instagram. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.